All right, seventh graders, we're moving on to the physical features in the eastern part of our country. This is going to be east of the Rocky Mountains all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. So, in this part of our country, you're going to see that it's dominated a whole lot more by water, whether it's huge lakes, rivers. There's a ton of different physical features that are water. Yes, there are mountains, and we'll look at some of the major mountain systems. And there are vast plains. Some of these plains are filled with grass, and others are a little bit different along the coast. So this is going to be much different now than what you saw out west. Okay, you're going to need to have your notes out in your binder for this one as I tell you some of these things here. Okay, so first of all, let's look at the mountains. So on your notes sheet for physical features of the East, where it says mountains, here mountains are much different than the West. Number one, they are not as tall as the West. Mountains here are only really about a third of the height of mountains of the West. The average size of mountains is around 4,000, maybe 5,000 feet in the East. They are much older. This is number two, much older than mountains in the West. These mountains have been eroded over enormous amounts of time. So, number three, how do you know this? Well, they're kind of rounded. Take a look at the image in front of you. These mountains are kind of rounded, and you don't see really a lot of bare rock on top. Number four, they are now like they're tree covered, if you can see that. These are the Ozarks. Ozarks are in mainly Missouri and Arkansas, and I think some people say they are a part of the Appalachian system, which stretches a lot of the eastern part of our country. Here's the Appalachians. So you can see again mountains that have been eroded over time. They're rounded, tree covered, full of green. The Appalachians will go from, well, you saw that the Ozarks are, they say, part of the system, but it's really from Alabama all the way to Maine. And the Appalachians, of course, are made up of many different mountain ranges. You'll hear about these some point in time, like in the North Carolina mountains, like the Great Smoky Mountains. You've got the Catskills in Pennsylvania. They're all part of the Appalachian chain. And then a mountain system that's even older than the Appalachians, the Adirondack Mountains. I think they said somewhere along the way I learned they're supposedly 1 billion years old. I don't know. I'd have to check on that one for sure. But the Adirondack Mountains, little fun fact for them, what you're looking at is the only wilderness land that is left east of the Mississippi River in this country. There's a lot of wilderness land out west, as you can imagine, with those huge mountains and rugged areas. You're looking at it. 2 million square miles of the Adirondack Mountains. Okay, moving on to some of these other features like the plains. So another feature that dominates this whole business here, east of the Rockies, are the Great Plains, which makes up like 40% of our country. 40% of our country. I've seen that somewhere as well. Whole states lie within the Great Plains. It goes from Canada all the way down to Texas, and pretty much from the Missouri River all the way to the foothills and then the Rocky Mountains. I would say it probably goes a little bit east of this is the Missouri River up in this area, but I'd say a little bit of this too is plains. But anyway, you can see it's huge. The plains are not like flat. It's not like it's just all level. The Great Plains are actually rolling. They're getting higher and higher as they get towards the Rocky Mountains. So you're going to get a lot of rugged landscape here as well. A very long time ago, there used to be great herds of bison that were on the Great Plains. They numbered in the tens of millions, most likely. Some of the earliest European accounts, there's a guy 500 years ago whose name was Coronado, Francisco Vasquez Coronado, and he took a huge expedition out of what we now call Mexico, and he's looking for gold. You'll learn about him later. And he actually went out on the Great Plains, maybe as far north as Kansas, Nebraska. He finds nothing, but he sees an ocean of grass, and it's so like featureless. There's like nothing there, no trees, nothing like that. That they had to navigate out there, like be able to find their way around by using a compass that you would use on a ship, a sea compass. It's the only way they could find their way around. And they wrote about this, that they would come upon these giant herds of bison, and they would have to wait 2 days until the herd passed. Yeah, I know, massive. All right, let's move on from the Great Plains. There's a little bit of a look there. See, kind of rolling a little bit. Grasslands. Yes, I know there's a couple trees there. But it's all changed now. You can even see like a little fence right here. It's all carved up, fenced, roads, cities. Very different from what it was before we were a country. Another look. Okay, so the other plains to mention here in this part of our country are the coastal plains. Remember that out west on their coast, mountains went right down to the ocean. You remember that? Okay, here, very different. The mountains are far inland. So along the coasts, whether it's the Gulf of Mexico coast or the Atlantic Ocean coast, you have these broad coastal plains. So it is relatively flat. It's, beaches and things like that, and mountains, like I said, are far inland. They do not go on the ocean. In fact, this looks very, very flat. I lived in this area here, and if you're in a high area, you can just see forever. Like there's bridges there that go like way up. If you guys have ever seen these big bridges along the coast to go over the rivers and stuff, and you can just see forever because it's so flat. And of course, because of that, when hurricanes come in off the ocean, doesn't matter anywhere along here, they can devastate these areas, just wipe them out because there's nothing in their way. If you notice, yes, Florida lies entirely within the coastal plains, and it's the only state that has a Gulf side and an ocean side, right? A lot of Louisiana lies within that Gulf coastal plain. So these areas just get destroyed in hurricanes because like I said, there's just nothing to hold them back. These coastal plains, whether it's the Gulf coastal plain or the Atlantic coastal plain, they go all the way up here. It gets a little bit more narrow. So where are the mountains? Okay, they're way inland here. So you go in your flat coasts, you go into an area that starts to turn into rolling hills. They call it the Piedmont, which is French, the Piedmont, which is like foot of the mountain, foothills, and then they turn into these Appalachian Mountains. That's how it works out there. There's the Ozarks, who you saw earlier. Okay, let's keep it going. Coastal plains, yep. A lot of you seen a view like that because a lot of you probably been in Florida or along the Gulf Coast somewhere. Okay, this is just a little bit of a look in New England. The Appalachians come up this way too, and you find our tallest mountain in the west, and that is, in the east, and that is Mount Washington. And it's the only one that I know of that is over 6,000 feet. That's it. Nothing else gets any higher. And from what I read, I had to look it up, that on a clear day, you can see the ocean 70 miles away. That's what I heard. You can see it about 70 miles right there. Okay? There's the Adirondacks up in what you and I know now as the state of New York. And a couple of important rivers that you guys are going to have to label. Ohio River, Hudson River. That one goes right by New York City. These are very historic rivers. Connecticut River, this is the longest river in all of New England. All right, so at Cape Cod, Pilgrims landed right here. This is New York City, right? And the very first English settlement that you guys will learn about this spring was right in this area here, up the Chesapeake Bay, on a river called James River. And they named that little settlement, its very first, it's the birthplace of our country, 1607. It's called Jamestown. All right? Okay, we're done with that one. And let's continue our tour with this guy. Another look at those Great Plains. Yeah? Don't forget Central Lowlands is where we are, right? East of the Mississippi River. So as I told you before, the region is all about water. Think about all the lakes we have in our state. Some people say Minnesota has the most, the land of 10,000 lakes. I think Wisconsin actually has more. Missouri River, even though that one ends out west, it begins here. What I should say, it begins in the west and ends at the Mississippi River. It is the longest river by a few miles in our country. Take a look. And it meets the Mississippi at St. Louis. The Ohio River, Mississippi, you guys know, starts in Minnesota, right? It's part of our border. And that's the Wisconsin River right there. That's our biggest river. All right, this looks like a heart with like a bunch of veins. It's the whole Mississippi River area with major rivers and tributaries that all go into the Mississippi. So think of the Mississippi River as like a trough. So everything goes down into it. Doesn't matter east or west of that river. Unless you're over here in Texas, some of these rivers just go right into the Gulf of Mexico, and some of these will go into the Gulf or the Atlantic Ocean. But west of the Appalachians, east of the Rockies, everything's going to go in the Mississippi pretty much. I don't know if you guys know this, but if you're ever driving, maybe you know this area, and you're going west. If you notice like this line right here, let me get back there, see that line right there? I'm pointing at it. Hopefully you can see it. If you're ever driving in the Milwaukee area and you're going on I-94 west, so you're going up to Brookfield, you've left like the zoo area, some of you know what I'm talking about, and you're going west. All right, you're going to go up this big ridge, and then you come over that and you go into like the Brookfield area, then later Waukesha. That ridge is like it's like the Wisconsin Divide. Anything east of it, which like, Milwaukee is, Wauwatosa is, any rivers there go into Lake Michigan. Everything west. Now think about it. That's only like maybe a few miles in from Lake Michigan, and then the rest of the state all goes to the Mississippi River. That's pretty cool. Little fun fact. Of course, you got the Great Lakes, the largest bodies of fresh water on Earth. And we got one right out our front door, don't we? You know that these are all that's left of glaciers that once dominated and covered our state 1 to 2 miles in height. Yes, 1 to 2 miles in height. So they're fresh water. Okay? All right, this is a little look, too, about our area. Great Plains. Now, they have the Central Lowlands going as far as here, but the Central Lowland really is over in this area. This is more Great Plains. You got your coastal plains, of course, the Appalachians. Okay, you guys are getting a little bit more of an idea of what your country looks like. That's a good picture. All right, moving on. Okay, there they are. Good old bison. It's Great Plains. It's not all flat. Another look at it. All right, we already got Ozarks. Don't need to do that. Okay. So we come to it. That's enough for now. You guys get a little bit of an idea of what this is all about. And it's going to be time to label some of these things. I think we have to double check your map if I already labeled those Great Lakes for you. But if not, you're going to have to label them. I hope you like the joke over here. I hope you get it. Okay, I hope you get that. Let me know later. If you don't, I'll try to help you out. Okay, so major rivers that you guys have to label, use a blue pencil for those, right? They're on your map. You just have to kind of trace them. So these are the rugged areas that you have to identify. You could use like a brown color pencil for the mountains. Maybe the Great Plains like yellow or something, kind of shaded in. Remember, it's huge. Okay. Then you should probably identify the Central Lowlands. That's where we are. Both of those coastal plains, and even like the Everglades in Florida. I forgot to mention that this area, especially the southeast, remember we said water dominates this area. Well, that includes swamps and bayous. Uh, Louisiana, they call them bayous, but swamps and bayous, same thing. They go all along the coasts, and they're filled with all kinds of different critters like the alligators and things like that. Everglades is the biggest. All right, there you have it. Time to label, and we'll see how far we can get in class before we move on to the history. Okay, good luck. You can just leave this page up, and you can work on your maps right now until everybody's in a good spot to move on.